To my mother, I leave a set of Henkel knives and signed cookbooks. To my father, I leave an electric guitar and a collection of Marvel comic books. And as for my vinyl, I have decided that I would like to be buried with it, excluding a copy of Holy Diver, which will be played at my funeral. Oh, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Don't mind me, I'm just writing my last will and testament. Because I'm pretty certain that some of y'all are gonna go fucking apeshit when I tell you how I feel about this new album from Harakiri for the Sky. Obviously, I'd like to believe that I'm overreacting, and obviously I'd like to believe this isn't necessary, but unfortunately I remember what happened when I dared to speak ill of Mgwa and Lorna Shore and Static X and Trivium and many more bands who had highly anticipated records, and I kind of went, they're okay, and y'all went, you motherfucker! So, yeah. Better safe than sorry. Mære is the fifth studio album from Austrian post-rock, post-hardcore, and black metal fusion crew Harakiri for the Sky. A band I've been semi-aware of for nearly a decade now since the release of their self-titled debut album, but never really came to appreciate until their third studio album, 3 Trauma. By no means a mind-blowing or revolutionary experience, and still to this day I frankly take issue with its incredibly beefy hour and 15-minute runtime, but all things considered, it was an incredibly enjoyable piece of modern black metal with a kind of emotional vulnerability and honesty that at the time I did not really expect from the genre. Fast forward now to February 2001, Harakiri for the Sky has finally unveiled their 5th studio album. It has been postponed a few times. It's one of the most anticipated albums of the year, and I'm kinda not really feeling it. And before you light your torches and sharpen your pitchforks, I want to make it perfectly clear, I do not by any stretch actively hate or dislike this record. I am not going to berate or bemoan anyone for liking this record. There's a lot I actually appreciate and respect about this record. I'm just not convinced that this is, like, the best album of the fucking year, as a few of you have already said it may be. It is a mostly well-produced and executed, but ultimately flawed modern black metal album that packs plenty of great moments, no arguing otherwise, but is not ultimately a great record. Part of the reason for this is because while I do enjoy a lot of what's on this album, it is ultimately a very predictable record. If you've heard a Harakiri for the Sky record, you pretty much know what to expect, almost automatically from Maere. There are very few surprises, if any whatsoever, on this record, sticking very closely, almost stubbornly, to their very tried and true blend of post-rock, black metal, and post-hardcore. With all the tremolo riffs, introspective lyrics, harrowing screams, and simplistic post-rock arrangements that we have come to expect. And this isn't to say that there isn't indeed some truly engaging and even inspired work to be found on this album. Take, for instance, the track Sing for the Damage We've Done, a very bold and declarative cut with some super aggressive black metal riffing and some really nice melodic leads. Or, for instance, the very stark and oddly raucous cut I'm All About the Dusk, which seems to fully embrace a lot of influence from 90s post-rock and post-hardcore. I feel like if Kvelertak ever got really fucking depressed, this is the kind of song they would write. Or even the very cold, epic, and melodramatic post-black metal of Once Upon a Winter. But even with all of these great moments and songs in mind, I still just didn't really find the record that fresh or invigorating. I kind of sat here most of the time going, alright, this is the part where the tremolo riff kicks in, and then boom, it kicked in. I would say to myself, oh, this must be where keyboards come in, and this is where the more ambient sounds come in, and this is where, you know, the epic kind of black metal breakdown comes in, and boom, boom, boom. It all kicked in like fucking clockwork. The vocals aren't really doing anything for me either. It's a lot of that very typical kind of post-rock and post-metal screaming and shouting. I do like what they're screaming and shouting about. In fact, lyrically speaking, this is probably Harakiri for the Sky's most poignant and pungent album to date. It's just not really being performed with the kind of power that I think this material demands. Although the biggest issue, without question, is the album's incredibly beefy, bloated, and unnecessarily long runtime. This album is almost 90 minutes long with an average track runtime of 8 minutes, and it simply does not fucking need to be. Even the tracks that I genuinely do like are far too long for their own good. The track I'm All About the Dusk in particular, the longest cut on the record, is 11 minutes and 8 seconds long, and it does not fucking need to be. You could fucking easily trim 5 minutes of fat off of this thing and be left with a remarkably lean and tasty piece of black metal steak. I'd even go as far as to say that you could easily trim 2 to 3 minutes off of every single song, and not only would you not lose anything of substance or quality, but you would gain a little bit more cohesion and a little bit more unity. The tracks wouldn't feel so samey all of a sudden, because suddenly they wouldn't just literally be repeating the same sections over and over for 11 fucking minutes. Now, I will concede that sometimes I am a bit of an impatient listener, and as such, albums that tend to run for 90 minutes long don't usually resonate with me. That's a fair criticism. That's a genuine bias that I sometimes have. But not in this instance, because I'm not the only one who has brought up this exact criticism. Take, for instance, the gentleman at Angry Metal Guy, who gave this album a pretty positive review, but even they had to admit this thing is way too fucking long for its own good. I'm unfortunately gonna give this album a 2.5 out of 5. I think there's a lot to appreciate about this record. I think there's a lot to enjoy about this record. There are some great riffs, there are some great melodies, there are some great lyrics, and there are some great performances. But the way it's all been combined and arranged and produced, I'm just not feeling it. There is far too much fat and far too little seasoning on what should be a very tasty black metal steak. It really is that simple for me. It's so simultaneously bloated, repetitive, and predictable that I genuinely had trouble on my very first listen, and on my second listen, I'll be entirely honest, there were entire sections of songs that I skipped entirely. I want to like this record. I really, really, really want to like this record, and there are a lot of things about it that I do like, to the point where I would weirdly give this an oddly enthusiastic 2.5 out of 5. Like, if I was at a record store with some buddies and they asked me about this, I would kind of look at it and go, yeah, man, it's okay. Give it a shot. But again, I just don't, despite my best efforts. I don't hate or dislike this thing. I just think it's kind of okay. Definitely far more likely to revisit some of their older material. I mean, I would probably even listen to their debut over this. Hell, I could probably listen to that album 3 times in a row in the same time it would take me to listen to this all the way through. So, yeah, that should really tell you about just how fucking bloated and unnecessarily lengthy it is. 2.5 out of 5, it's okay. I'm probably going to be in the minority on that, but fuck it. Not the first time, probably won't be the last time. And that is it for the Metal Meltdown. I'm not an expert, nor do I claim to be, so what do you think? Do you like this record? Do you not like this record? And what do you want to hear from me next? And thank you for watching. Make sure you press subscribe so you get updates on the Metal Meltdown fucking immediately. And as always, you have yourself a fantastic fucking day.